So at the end of the Mishnah, beginning of the parak, we had brought the machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabban. What happens if a person made a shvua saying he's not going to eat, and then he ate less than a kazayis, he ate a kolshu? Gemara says chayiv tivur Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says you're going to be chayiv even though he didn't eat a kazayis, he's going to be chayiv. Hamrulai, Rabbi Kiva, the Chachamim who argue on Rabbi Kiva, they say you have to eat a kazayis. They said to him, Heichen metzinu ba'eichen kolshu shu chayiv. Where do we ever find that someone who eats a kolshu who is chayiv? Means always you have to eat a kazayis. And as we're going to see from the Gemara, this doesn't mean to say that the Chachamim say that they understand very well that this is a shvua. He's mechayiv for the shvua, he's not mechayiv for the eating. But the question is, when a person says, I'm not going to eat, what does he mean by that? The Chachamim say, what he means by that is doing an eating, a regular eating, which is a kazayis. So Rabbi Kiva answered back, maybe carbon, maybe carbon. Rabbi Kiva says back to them, what you're saying is true, that a person, when he eats, he's always requires a kazayis. So you're contending that he meant a kazayis when he said, I'm not going to eat. He meant, I'm not going to eat a kazayis, and therefore he should be pater. But I say to you, he's not mechayev over here for eating. He's mechayev for the shvua. And the shvua, there's no such thing that a shvua has to be on a kazayis. So he disagrees with them about what his intention is when he said shalei eichel. And this is going to be a blot back and forth on this topic, and it's all going to center around this topic of what a person means when he says shalei eichel. So that's the Gemara. Shvua shalei eichel va'achal kol shu chayev. Yibayalahu. The Gemara asks the question: Rabbi Kiva b'chala Torah kula k'Rav Shimon sviralei the mechayev b'mashu. Does Rabbi Kiva? Now I gave away the game where the Gemara is going to end up at the end by the way I explained the Mishnah. But the Gemara now is contemplating maybe the reason why Rabbi Kiva says Yechayev when you make a shvua that I'm not going to eat. Maybe the reason is because he holds like Reb Shimon, who holds in general that you're mechayev on a mashu. You can eat a mashu when a person eats a mashu on Pesach, or if he eats a mashu of nevela, or any kind of a mashu of nice, or whatever it is, he's going to be mechayev on it. The Tanya of Shimon Omer, kolshu lamakas. The din of kolshu, you get malchus for a kolshu. Carbon. The only requirement, the Torah, we know that there's a halacha l'moshe misina that the shear for achila is kazayis. That's only said the gabi bringing a carbon. In order to bring a carbon chatas, you have to have eaten a kazayis. But the gabi getting malchus, the shear is a kolshu. There's no shear. So really, Rabbi Kiva could have made this into a generic argument. Why is he talking about over here that there's no din achila? Rabbi Kiva is answering the Rabbanan. They should have just said this is the machlokes of Rav Shimon and Rechacham of whether you need a share of kazayis or not when you eat something. The reason why they argue over here in this particular case where a person made a shvua not to eat and he ate less than a kazayis, it's to tell you that the Rabbanan inspire. Even in this case, the Rabbanan are going to say you need a kazayis. One might have said over here, no, everyone agrees. This is why what I said, the way I explained the Mishnah, was really accurate. Because even the Chachamim, who say that if someone says shvua shalei eichel and he ate less than a kazayis, they say he's potter, they'll agree if the person said a shvua that I'm not going to eat a mashahu of food. In that case, he's certainly going to be mechayev malchus. He's going to get malchus for the shvua if he eats a mashahu food. If he's mafarish, if he specifies that he's eating less than a kazayis, then even the Rabbanan will say he's chayev. So I might say in this case, the Rabbanan would be maskim to Reb Shimon, even though they don't agree with Reb Shimon, that they hold that generally for achili you need a kazayis. In this case, since if the person were to specify and say that I'm making a shvua that I'm not going to eat even a mashahu, maybe if he just says stam, if he doesn't say a specific amount, the understanding is that he means a mashu. So the Gemara says that's why we said this machlokes. One would say maybe that's the reason why Rabbi Kiva and the Chacham are arguing over here. Rabbi Kiva says like the Rav Shimon, the Chachamim say like the Chacham who argue Rav Shimon, because one might say that the Chachamim are masking over here in this particular case that Yechayev even on less than a mashu, since if he specified, if he's a mafarish, everyone, even they would agree he's chayev. Kamash on that no. Kamash on the patri. That's why I was saying that the pat. That's the way we could understand that our Mishnah is going that the Rabbi Akiva holds like Rav Shimon. Oidelma, ba'alma k'rabbanan tzvirelei. Maybe Rabbi Akiva does not hold like Rav Shimon that you're mechuyev for eating less than a kazayis in general. He holds like the Rabban who say you have like we always assume that you have to eat a kazayis. V'achahainu time a hayil mefarish chayiv stam nami chayiv. That ain't a chanami. The reason for Rabbi Akiva is because he says this svara that we said possibly the Chachamim would be maskim. That's taka the reason of Rabbi Akiva, that he holds you always need a kazayis, but over here, since had he specified less than a kazayis, he would have been chayiv for less than that. If he says stam, what he really means is even less than a kazayis. So Tashma, the Gemara wants to bring a raya. So we're back to our. So this is our two studim. Is Rabbi Akiva saying that when someone makes a shvua shalei oichal and eats less than a kazayis, Rabbi Akiva said in our Mishnah that he's in b'chayiv? Is the reason because he holds generically like Rav Shimon that you never need a kazayis for achila, you only need it for a carbon but not for malchus? Or is it because he says that this case is different? Had he specified less than a kazayis, he would certainly be chayiv. So even if he didn't specify, even if he said stam, he means less than a kazayis. Tashma, the Amrulei Rabbi Kiva, Hecha Matzina ba'Eichel Kolshu Chayiv Shezeh Chayiv. In the Mishnah, the Rabbanon asked the Taina Rabbi Kiva. They asked him, where do we ever find that someone who eats a kolshu is chayiv? That you're saying that this person, when he says in the Eichel, he means less than a kazayis. Ve'misa leimel hu anabachalotay kulik Rav Shimon's really. Why didn't Rabbi Kiva, instead of giving a tortured answer to them, he could have just answered directly? You're saying that we never find that you're chayiv for less than a kazayis. I don't agree with you. It's not true. I think that you are chayiv unless the kazayis in every case, because I hold like Rav Shimon. So Gemara, so no, that's not a raya. Lidveim the Rabbanan Kamalu Lididi b'chalateru kul Rav Shimon Sverli. Ein achanami Rav Shimon. He could have answered that I hold like Rav Shimon, and it's not true what you said that in every case you're chayiv for less than a kazayis. They did chu, but according to you that you disagree, you hold like the chalkam on Rav Shimon that you always need a kazayis to be chayiv. That's why he said the reason no, but you should still be masking to me in this case, since he's really making a shvua, and since it's a shvua, if he was mafarish that he wants him in mechayiv for less than a kazayis, if he wants to be mechayiv for kol should be mechayiv. So therefore, if he says it's tam, he's also going to be chayiv. The Rabbanan say no, we're not moida. We don't hold of this svara of hayil. If he's mafarish, he's chayiv. Then also stam is mafarish. So we're back to our question. We don't have a raya either way. Does Rabbi Kiva agree with Rav Shimon? Toshma. Rabbi Kiva, I'm nazir sheshara pita b'yayin. A nazir who dipped a nazir is not allowed to drink wine. A nazir who dipped his bread into wine. Yesh b'kadei l'tzaref kazayis. The wine was not a kazayis. You know, he's also, the understanding is he's also to eat, a nazir is also to eat a kazayis of wine. It's not really a kazayis, it's a revius, but the shear, you can be mitzar of them. So, but by putting the wine into the bread, by dipping the bread into the bread is less than a kazayis, and the wine is not enough of a shear. But by dipping them together, the sum of the two is more than a kazayis. Chayev. So there's Rabbi Kiva. What do you have to be mitzaref? As long as you have a kolshu of wine, you're going to be chayiv. So what is? It's not possible to talk about tzira. So obviously, Rabbi Kiva does not agree with Rav Shimon in other contexts. Ba'oitnan shvua shalei oichel. This is the Mishnah that we're going to see on the next blot. A shvua, when he makes a shvua that I'm not going to eat. Ba'achal nevelus utreifas skratzer umasim, and he ate things that are asur. a nevelo or a treifa, shkatzim or umasim. These are things that chayiv, a person not eat. Chayiv. He's going to be chayiv. It means to say he's chayiv a carbon for eating for his shvuah. Obviously, he's going to be chayiv for eating these things, the shkatzim or umasim and the nevelo and treifa. Rav Shimon Paiter. Rav Shimon says he's not chayiv for the shvuah. Zok the Gemara of Avinamba. Am I chayiv? What's the pshat in the Chacham who say chayiv? Mushma me'arsinahu. This person, the Gemara time is that the general rule is if a person makes a shvuah on a mitzvah, if someone makes a shvuah, I'm going to wear tefillin today. That's not a shvuah, and he doesn't wear tefillin. He's mechoyev for being mevatel the essay of tefillin, but he's not mechoyev for that shvuah. That shvuah did not take effect because a shvuah that's repeating something that a person is anyway required to do does not take effect. Like I said, if you make a shvuah that you're going to wear tefillin, it doesn't do anything. Similarly, this person said shvuah shalei eichel. It shouldn't take effect on nevelos or treifa since he's not allowed to eat them anyway. So the Gemara asks, so how could he be chayiv for this shvuah? Ravu Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan, the Amri Travayu. Some people take out Travayu because it's 3 people. Some people take out Shmuel. There's the longest Masorah Shashash I ever saw about this topic, going back and forth about how to amend this properly. Travayu means 2, and we just said 3 mandamrim. In any case, they say, all 3 of them say, "B'kol dvar ma'mutar min dvar ma'asurim." This is not a problem that it's a mushba v'aymin marasin. When this person said shvuah shalei eichel, he's saying I'm not going to eat anything. Included in that is the nevelos and treifas skachlim romasim. So when you have an isser kailel, when the isser is included in something else, in dvar mutarim that he's answering to himself, it can be schlepped along. It can be schlepped along that even though if he made an independent shvuah on nevelos or treifas, it wouldn't work. But if he makes it as part of a broader shvuah that is taking effect, it will take effect regarding those things that he's asur on. We don't say it's mushba me'ar sinai. That's Rabbi Yochanan's teretz. Reish Lakish Amar, Iyata Motzei, no, he says that's not gonna. He doesn't hold of this Isser Kailul Dvar Ma'mutarim. He doesn't hold it. Reish Lakish doesn't hold it that far. The only way you're going to find it, Iba Mefaris Chatzi Shir V'Aliba D'Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan of our Mishnah, the way you'll find it that a person could be chayiv for nevelos for a shvuah, nevelos or treifas, whereas where he said, I'm making a shvuah that I'm not going to eat a mashahu of nevelos or treifas. So mashahu of nevelos or treifas, one is not chayiv on. So you're seeing this is because we don't hold it. We're seeing he doesn't hold like Rav Shimon. You're only mechuyev for nevelos or treifas when you eat a kazayis. And since he's being mafarish a gabi the shvuah that it's even on a mashu, everyone agrees if you're mafarish on a shvuah, it could be less than a mashu. So that's a case where it's not mushva me'ar sinai. Since midaraisa you're not chayiv for pachas mikashir for less than a kazayis, and so that's according to Rabban. According to Rabbi Kiva, you don't even have to say that. According to Rabbi Kiva, when a person makes a shvuah, he always means a mashahu. So therefore, you're not chayiv al nevelu treifa. You're only chayiv because of the shvuah, so therefore would be able to take effect. It's not mushba v'yamin. The Amar the Motzei atzim b'cholshu. V'isa kadayat the Malmak Rav Shimon tzvirlei kolshu nami mushba v'yamin ratzinayu. The whole way this is working according to Reish Lakish is because he's saying that less than a kazayis, you only have the isser from the shvuah, and you don't have the isser of nevelos and treifas. But if you hold like Rav Shimon, if they say the reason for Rabbi Kiva is because he holds like Rav Shimon, then you always have an isser even on a kolshu, on all isurim, even on nevelos or treifas. We have 2 rayas that, and this is what, like I said from the beginning, that Rabbi Kiva really does not hold like Rav Shimon, and the reason over here is because he's mefarish. Because since he was mefarish, when he says stam, he also means as if he said, he means to say it's even by a kolshu. So the Gemara. Amru loy Rabbi Kiva. The Rabbanan answered back to Rabbi Akiva. This is a continuation. We're going to be continuing on this topic for a while. This, even though it's 2 dots, it's not a new topic. The Rabbanan in the Mishnah said back to Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva said that you're going to be chayiv because he said you're chayiv. So the Chacham said back to him, where do we ever find such a thing that a person is chayiv for eating less than a kazayis? how could you assume that when he says stam loy oichel, he means less than a kazayis? Now this question, this Gemara and the next Gemara also are asking questions. These questions are not a logical disputation of the Chachamim's taina. This is just the way they expressed it by saying that where do we ever find that Yechayev less than a kazayis? We're asking on that, is that true what you just said? Now, I don't know that because there's an exception that would necessarily disprove their taina, that they say that generally the rule is that a person means a kazayis. But they're saying you overstated your case. Correct, Gemara, is that true what you're saying? That you're only chayiv for eating a kazayis. If someone eats an ant, that you're chayiv for eating an ant, even if it's a tiny ant. It doesn't have to be a kazayis. As we all know, right? You have to check your lettuce because there's a bug in it. You're going to be chayiv even though it's less than a kazayis. So Gemara, berry is shiny. No, berry is a davar choshev, and that's the reason why you're chayiv. Ein achanami, but that has nothing to do with our topic. When the Chachamim say in the Mishnah, when they ask on Rabbi Akiva, do we ever find less than a kazayis? They don't mean this. Barei hektish. So Gemara, what about hektish, that you could be chayiv on less than a kazayis? If someone's makdish and he eats even a less than a kazayis, you're chayiv. So Gemara, no, but there's a different standard for hektish. It's true that you don't need a kazayis, but you do need being in shava pruta. It has to be worth a pruta. So there's a different shear for that, but it doesn't mean that it's a kol shehu. So that's not what they meant. It is when they said you never chayiv on a kol shehu. So hektish zulta not chayiv on a kol shehu. It has to be a shava pruta. V'hari mefarish. What about if someone is mefarish? In this case of shu itself, we say if someone's mefarish kol shehu, everyone agrees chayiv. It's like no more mefarish nami kaberia. The chacham we're not talking about that. He's saying vehechon matzinu that a person is chayiv less than a kazayis. Einachanami mefarish is chayiv, but that's a specific case. It's not the general rule that you could be mechuyev for less than a kazayis. Mefarish nami kaberia dami. Bari offer. We're going to see in the next Mishnah if someone said, "No, he's not going to eat offer. He's not going to eat dirt. He's not going to eat dust. Dust l'chayra." There's no share of kazayis. He's not barely eating. It's not considered eating. So Gemara elativsha at the boy Rava. Let's answer from this Rava's question that we're going to see on Amud Beis. Shvua shalei oichel va'achal afer bekama. When the Gemara says, if someone says a shvua that he's not going to eat afer, the aleph is to stick in the word afer. Va'achal afer, and then he ate afer. Bekama, how much is it? He was asking, does it have to be a kazayis or not? Tifshadate kazayis. Let's bring a raya from here, from our Mishnah. We say that we don't find anyone that is ever mechuyev for less than a kazayis. So that must mean that offer is also not mechuyev unless there's a kazayis. So Gemara kikamir the devar achila kamina v'hari kainam. We're only talking about things that are bar achila. Offer is not something that's an oichel. The Chacham's taina was we never find anything that's capable of being eaten, that's normally capable of being eaten. Offer is not in that class to begin with. So that's not an upslug of our Mishnah that said that we never find that you're mechuyev leis to kazayis. All these things have specific anomalous reasons why they are mechuyev less than a kazayis. That doesn't affect the Chachamim's point that generally a person is only chayiv a kazayis. Fact the Gemara of Harei Kainamis. What about a kainim, which we're going to see in a second? We've been talking about a shvua until now, where some person makes a shvua any yoichel. When someone says kikar zeh kainim alai, this kikar is asa to me. The din is that he's mechuyev on a mashu. We're going to see later on that it's a mashu because we're going to see in great detail. So l'chayr we see even less than a kazayis. So the Gemara kainamis nami can mefarish dami. The reason for kainamis is because when a person says kainamis, generally the explanation is a kainim is he doesn't say oichel, he doesn't say any oichel, he just says the kainim is asa to me. So as if he's saying any amount, because he's answering the thing on him, he's making it like hegdish. He's saying it's asa to me. It's like mi'ila.
And by hektish, is there a shear?
Well, we said before, the hektish is a shear of shava pruta. But kainamas doesn't have that. I don't think kainamas has the shear of shava pruta. Kainam is he's asering on himself, he's making it entirely asa. Okay, what did we say? We had this before, right? Was this in the middle of Kainamis Oiver B'Layachal Dvarei? Is it Kainam is Oiver B'Layachal Dvarei? Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't say about what the shear is. I'm not sure why it shouldn't need to have a Shava Pruta. I'm not exactly sure. Zakdamar. Amalan Hechan Matzina B'Medaber, maybe carbon Shazem Medaber, maybe carbon. So Kiva answered back, this is not Achila. This is a person who's saying something and he's being chayiv, and generally a person is not chayiv for just his words. So therefore, I mean, his point is that therefore this is different. This is the chayiv is because of what he said. But again, Rabbi Kiva expressed it in this way. So the Gemara is going to ask, V'loi, is it true that this is the only case where a person speaks and he's mechayiv and brings a carbon, v'harei megadef? Someone who is megadef, someone who blasphemes, he's mechayiv for what he said. So the Gemara medaber v'oiser coming. We're not talking about someone who's being punished for what he said, for the content of what he said. We're talking about someone who's making something aser and thereby being mechayiv malchus. V'hai medaber v'choytu. By megadef, he's not being medaber and making something aser. The dibur itself is what's aser. That's a different discussion. That it could be malchus. V'hari nazir mervi kabanai al diburoi. Nazir, what about a Nazir? Because a Nazir, if he becomes Tameh or if he shaves his hair, he has to bring a carbon and restart his Naziris. So, or at the end of his Naziris, he has to bring a carbon. So Gemara, maybe Karban el Dibura come in. Maybe carbon l'shariya lechamra. We're talking about at the end of his Naziris, a Nazir brings a carbon. He's not bringing a carbon because of what he said to make himself a Nazir. He's bringing a carbon that now he should be able to drink wine at the end of his Naziris, but it's not because of what he said. It's not that he asked himself, and therefore he has to bring a carbon. He's bringing a carbon.
Even though we said before that a Nazir has to bring a carbon, we want to know what the chait is, and we said that it's a chait that he
regardless of what the reason that what the carbon is for, it's not that he answered something to himself, and now the carbon is for what he answered for violating the Isser. The carbon is to allow him to drink wine. So even if he had the reason why he's doing it, it's because he made the Naziris at the beginning. It's not because he answered something and now he has to do penance for the thing for violating what he answered. It's maybe for the fact that he made the Naziris at the beginning, but again, that's not because of what he answered. It's because of his Mekabel the Naziris in the first place. So that's more like the Megadef, where he's chayta. Again, that wouldn't be a problem. Frekdemara Bahare Hekdesh. What about Hekdesh? That someone's makdish something. He's also mechayiv a carbon if he's mile in the Hekdesh. So that's what Rabbi Akiva meant to say is we don't find a person that says something where a personal isser, and that when you makdish something, it becomes asa to everyone. Kainamas is again a neder. A neder when he says this thing should be asa to me. Person can't go and say this bench is asa to the whole world. He can only asa to himself. Unless it belongs to him, then he can ask to everyone else. But a kainim is b'derech klal talking about not his own thing on other people. He's talking about where he's asked something to himself. So, that's a personal isser. He holds that the isser of kainim is not an isser mi'ila. It's not that the person is going to be asser for violating by having hana from it, that it's considered like kachim. So therefore, he holds that you don't have to bring don't bring a carbon if you're over on the kainim. The kainim, the idea that you would be mechayiv a carbon for being over on a kainim is based on the idea that when a person says, I want this thing to be asa to me, it gets legabe him a status of kodshim, and therefore if he touches it, he's over on mi'ila. But he holds it, Rabbi Kiva holds there's no mi'ila by kainamas. So Amar Rava, machloikas are machloikas in the Mishnah between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabban, where the Rabbanan say you're going to be potter if someone makes a shvua shalei eichel and he ate less than a kazayis. The Chacham say you potter, and Rabbi Kiva said you're going to be chayiv. The machloikas is bestam. That's just where he said it. Shvua shalei eichel. Aval b'mefarish, but if he says shvua shalei eichel kol shehu, divrei kol b'chol shehu, everyone will agree that he's mechuyev in a kol shehu. My timer. Mefarish nami keber yadami, like we referenced before, that when a person is mefarish it, that gives it a chashivas, and it's like a beria, just like we say a beria, a person is chayiv on, even though it's less than a kazayas. This also will have chashivas, and it's when he says le'eichel, he means even this because he was mefarish. Amar Rav, machlekes b'shalei eichel. The machlekes is only when he said shalei eichel. That over there, the Rabbanan will say he's not going to be a chayiv. Abel v'shalei etoim. If he said I'm not going to taste, everyone will agree that the Rabbanan will be masking to Rabbi Kiva. It's going to be awesome. If he says the whole reason to pattern is because he said shalei eichel, and shalei eichel has a mashmois that it has to be a kazayis. But if he says shalei etoim is just a te'ima, that could be even less than a kazayis. So Pshita, what do you have to even tell me this? The whole reason to pater we're going to Rabbanan is because he said eichel, and the less than a kazayis generally is not achila, but here he never said eichel. When a person says litaim tima, he means to eat. This is actually Taisus on Amud Bey is going to say this very clearly, that when people use the lashon of te'ima, in general what they mean is I'm going to be eat something, so I might say it has the same connotation as achila. Amra Papa. Now this is the one that gets us into trouble. Amra Papa, machloikis b'shvuos. This machloikis between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan is only legabi where he said shvua shaloi eichel. Aval b'kainamas, if he says kainim kikar zeh alai, divrei akol b'chol shu. Everyone will agree that you're mechoyev in a kol shu. My timer, what's the reason? Kainamas nami, you can leave in the word nami or not. Kiva d'loi kamit ger shma dachilik nemefarish nami. Like we said, where a person said tayim is mechoyev by a kol shu, when he says kainim zeh alai, he doesn't say anything about achila. He's saying it's also to me. So it's as if he said, I want to be over. I want to answer this to me with a kol shu. Because kainim doesn't have the lashon of achila is what causes us to, which ameliorates what he's saying and saying it has to be specifically kazayis. Kainim doesn't have the lashon of achila, so therefore it doesn't have a kazayis. Meisvei, frektig mar. Shnei kainamas mitztarfen. Two kainamas, which Rashi explains, what is the case of shnei kainamas? If he said, the Gemara at least at this point understands it to mean, he said, kainem kikar aleph alai, and then kainim kikar beis alai. So, and each kainim, each kikar, each loaf that he said should be also unto him had less than a kazayas in it. It had half a kazayas, so 3/4 of a kazayas. So if he eats both of those kikarim together, is when it's starved to make a kazayas. Shtei shvuos ein mitzvah. We could right away see the problem over here, right? We're saying shnei kainamas mitzdarfen, according to what Rav Papa just said. What the Gemara is going to ask us is clearly in a second, but what do you have to be mitzdarf? If you're chayiv for less than a kazayis, then what do you need mitzdarf anything? But the Brisa continues, Shnei Shavuos ein mitzdarf. And if he says 2 Shavuos, kikar shvua shalei eichel kikar's aleph and shvua shalei eichel kikar beis, and they're less than kazayis, but together they're more than kazayis, those are not mitzdarf. Rameir says kainamis kishvuos. Rameir says just like shvuos are not mitzdarf, the kainim is also not mitzdarf. First of all, how does this thing start? If you're going to say that you're mechuyev on a kol shu, lamali l'tzaref. What are we talking about being mitzaref? What's the necessity of being mitzaref? Both according to Rameir. Rameir says it's not mitzaref by a kainim or a shvua, I'm sorry. Machlekes is shvua. What kind of yeah? Shnei kainamis mitzdarf. So he says shnei kainamis mitzdarf. So first of all, why would you need to be mitzdarf? And according to the Meir, says that the kainamis are not mitzdarf. It still shouldn't make any difference. So Gemara, so no, we have to understand that the difference, the case is slightly different than the way we had explained it. The Amar achila mizu alai koilam achila mizu alai koinim. We're talking about where he didn't just say koinim ze alai, but he said achila mizu. He used the lashon of achila. Achila was caused us by Yeshua to say that you might need a kazayis. That's what the machlekes Rabbi Kiva and the Chacham was. So over here he said achila in the kainim, so therefore he restricted it to only a kazayis. It's like the Gemara, ihachi amay mitzdarvus. So how could the Chachamim say that kainim is mitzdarif if he said two separate things? He said, I'm making a kainim to eat this thing, and then he said, I'm making kainim to eat this other kikar. That's two separate shavuos. How could you be mitzdarif the two of them to reach the shir of a kazayis? So the Gemara, enachanami. The Amar achila mishteim alai kainim. He didn't make two separate shavuos. He didn't say achila mikikar aleph is kainim and achila mikikar beis is kainim, but rather he said achila mikikar. He said from mishtei kikaris. He said achila from these two kikaris is a kainim on me. So in fact, the Gemara, if that's the case, we're talking about where he said eating from these two kikaris is a kainim on me. The gavase gabe shvuos, the shvuos must also be talking about the same case where he said shvua of these two kikaris is a lie. That a shvua she'enei oichel mikshei kikaris elu. Dama shvua shelo oichel mishtein. Amayim mitzdarfen. Why wouldn't it be mitzdarf? He did put them together. He and his shvua put them together. So why are you saying that he can't add them together? It's all in one big shvua. Amar Pinchas shani shvuos mitayim shechalukas l'chatoyis ein mitzdarfen. We're talking over here Lagabi getting malchus, but being mitzdarf to kazayis. But shvuos, we know this is a long Rashi about this. Rashi explains let's see the Rashi. He's going to refer to the Mishnah on the next Amid, and that explains he explains his svara behind this. So Rashi shechalukas l'chatois mishtot shetei karas halalu chashuva shtayim le'inin chatas b'shvuazu. Because legabi chatas, you're going to bring two chatoyas on these two kikaras. Im amar shvua shel eichel mizu umizu. If he says a shvua that I'm not going to eat from this and this, va'achal kazayis mizu behelam echad, and he ate a kazayis from each one behelam echad, chayiv shtayim. The din is he's chayiv two separate chatois. Kedetanan lekamon, I'm going to see in the next blot on the Mishnah. Shvua shel eichel pas chitin, pas oir, and pas kaismin. He makes a shvua that he's not going to eat a loaf of wheat bread, a loaf of barley bread, and a loaf of I don't know what is spelt bread. And he ate them. We learn from a pasuk that a person is chayiv a separate chatas for each individual kikar that he specified that he's not eating. So since the gabi, the din of helam echad, we separated into separate chatoyis. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Pinchas, says, we're also going to separate it legabi the shvuos that they're not going to be able to be mitzdarf. So what's a chumrah over there that we say that it's going to be separate chatas will come out of kula over here that if you don't have a full kazayis in one of them, they're still going to be looked at as separate things since they're looked at separately legabi they didn't bring a carbon chatas. Dr. Mari Hachi Remei Raima Kinamis Beshua Reb Kishvu, I'm sorry. Rabbi Meir says that a kainim is treated like a shvua, just like a shvua is not mitzdarf. A kainim is also not mitzdarf. Bishlam shvua sahav chalukas lechatas. Elakanamas amai loy. By a kainim, there's no chatas. There's no chatas for a kainim, for a neder. Kainim is only for a shvua. So we don't have a helam on a kainim. So what would be the reason to be mechalik between what would be the reason to say you're not mitzdaref if he said these two kikaris are treated as a kainim to me, but there's no svara of that we learn out from the din of Helam by Achatas. So the Gemara, so we have to say Epach. Remeir Aimer Shavuos Kekainamas. Remeir says the other way around. A kainam, we said a kainam is mitzdarf. He's saying a shvua is also mitzdarf. The less late leader of Pinchas. He doesn't hold of the svara of Pinchas that we say since legabi a carbon they're treated separately. Therefore, the shvuas is also treated separately. And enechanami, Remeir is saying punkt vakert that not only is the shvua mitzdarf, not only is the kainam mitzdarf, it certainly Reb Pinchas svara does not apply at all since there's no carbon for helam echad. There's no separate karbanis. But even by a shvua, we don't care about the fact that the shvua has separate dinim legabi a carbon, the helam echad, and it's going to be not mitzdarf. It's going to be mitzdarf, I'm sorry. Ravina gives a different teretz to this kasha, right? We had asked that Rav Papa says, kainamas, you're mechuyev for less than a, kainamas is b'divrei hakol b'chol shu. Rav Papa said, machlaikas is by shuas, by kanamas, everyone says it's b'chol shehu. And we asked from this brisa that we said shnei kanamas is mitzdarfen, shei shuas a mitzdarfen. So if you hold, what are you talking about being mitzdarf if you're chayev even for less than a kazayis? Vina makikam Rav Papa l'inyan malchus. That which Rav Papa said, our din that Rav Papa was saying that yech mochayev on a kainim for less than a for pachas mi shavapruta, that's the gabe malchus. Ki tanya hila inyan carbon do in shavapruta. But the brisa that was saying that that you need to be mitzdarf, that's the gabe a carbon. Remember the sabibanan yesh miila b'kainamas. If we're talking about a carbon legabi kainamas, that must be because it's not just the shvua, but rather it's the din of meila that he's treated not just that he's violating his neder on this thing, but it's treated as if he somehow was he elevated this thing by making a kainim by answering it himself as a kainim. He's treating it as if it's kachim, and therefore he has to bring a carbon meila, a carbon asham from meila. But Tanya kika is a hegdish for achla. Someone says a kika, this kika should be hegdish, and he ate it. Bein hu bein chaveroi ma. Whether he eats it or his friends eats it, it's hektish. This is a regular din of hektish. We're not talking about kainim. Hektish, a person can be makdish something and it becomes hektish. So there's going to be meal on it. Lafikach yesh la pidyon. So since it's kachim, there's a din of you can be paided kachim. Kika is a lie hektish, but if he says this kika should only be hektish to me, who mal, he's going to have bimi. Lafikach ein la pidyon. His friend does not have a din meila because it's not hegdish for him, and it's not really hegdish. What he did was he just asked it for himself, and he made it also on himself. Divrei Ramei. The Chacham disagree. They say, "What are you talking about? Just because he said it should be also to me, he doesn't elevate it to have a din that it's kaidish, that it should have a din meila." So we see that Chama is saying there is no mila by kainama. So how could we say that the explanation is over here that we're talking about a carbon and we're talking about Gabi that he should be aser, should be mechayiv and meila and have to bring a carbon? It's like epach echad zev echad zolei mal. If you should aim mila by kainama, divrei Ramei. We say the other way around. Ramei is the one who says that both of them he's not aser because he holds there's no mila by kainama. So chamayim hu mal v'chaver mal. He was mal because there is meila by kainama, so therefore we don't have a stira. The chacham over here, I like the chacham over there that there is meila in the kainamas. It's like Mari Hachi Ramei Raim kainamas v'keshvua ala kainamas tzaravu dolem mitzdarfi hamila isbu. Ramei says that kainamas is like a shvua. What he's saying is that kainamas can't be mitzdarif, but they theoretically could be meila of Amar Ramei meila b'kainamas. Klal Ramei has said that there's no meila b'kainamas in our Mishnah in its brisa that we just brought. Ramei we were mahapachim to say that Ramei now is the mandam who's saying Chulai mal, and the other people, no one is mal because there's no meila by Kainamas. But from the mashmais of our Mishnah, we say he's not mitzdarif. It's mashma that the problem is only that he's not mitzdarif, but not that there's no meila altogether. The divrei mirwan kamalu lididi and meila b'Kainamas klal yidchu oidel miyad the Kainamas kishvua. Rabbanan shvuas ika v'Rabbanan. How do Rabbanan disagree with it? Shavuos ikadira pinchas, kanamas lekadira pinchas. Rabbanan will say, no, by Shavuos we have Rapinchas as far to Mimachalik. That's the reason why it's not going to be mitzdarf. But kanamas, you don't have Rapinchas, therefore it is mitzdarf. Okay, I'm afraid we're going to have to stop over here. Much to my regret.
What time tomorrow? 7?
Regular time, 10 to 8, right?
Perfect.
That's